Hi everyone, welcome back for another edition of Virtual Yoga, and today we're going to be doing a Yin Yoga practice. But obviously before we get started, I want to give you some time to get some props. If you have any blocks, blocks are always nice. A towel, always recommend a towel, lots of ways to use that. Yoga mat if you got it, if not, lay on the floor, probably be fine. Maybe a beach towel if all else fails. I mentioned, I think on Wednesday or Tuesday, I can't remember, I can't play music in this. Facebook can detect any song that is not, we're not allowed to play. So anything that has copyright to it, we cannot play. So grab your own music if you need some. I'm going to keep it quiet here because I think it's honestly, it's just better to hear me anyway instead of me talking over music or talking over a dog like I am right now. With that, thank you. We can go ahead and get started. She's really eager and excited to begin. So am I, actually. So am I. So let's go ahead and we'll get started. Comfortable position, laying down on your mat. If you'd like to, if you're close to a wall, you can always rest your feet up the wall. It's actually how I normally would start a practice off. Obviously, since I'm teaching, I want to be upright and facing the camera. But if you're in the privacy of your own home, I mean, feel free. Rest your feet up the wall. Nobody's going to judge you for it. In fact, I recommend doing it because it's going to help slow your body down a little bit more. So maybe I'll explain that more in a moment. But close your eyes wherever you're at. I want you to start paying attention to your breath and breathing low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. And if you'd like to double check if you're doing this correctly, place a hand on your stomach below your belly button. You'll feel the stomach expand when you take an inhale. It will contract when you take an exhale. And this is belly breathing. It's the breathing technique that I recommend for our practice because it's a slower paced practice and we want to slow the body down. Breathing low in your diaphragm will help with that. It will slow your heart down, slow your nervous system down. It will slow your mind down. Your mind may wander in the practice. Don't beat yourself up if it does. It's all part of this, really. But if you need something to pay attention to, remind yourself that your breath is always there for you. It's always present and something for you to focus on throughout the course of the practice. But again, what we're doing, Yin Yoga, it's a gentle and passive style of yoga where you're holding slow static postures for an extended period of time to stretch the body. But it's not just about stretching our muscles. We'll stretch muscle, but what we're really targeting is called connective tissue. It's our deeper tissue. It's what holds our muscles, our bones, and our organs in place and in line. It's a really important thing to work, but a lot of us are just unfamiliar with it. How we do it is by holding poses for a while. Roughly 4 to 5 minutes with each individual pose that I give. But just know, times are arbitrary and subjective. If your better judgment tells you to come out of something early, say 2 or 3 minutes in a pose, you feel like you've had enough, you want to make your way out, it's fine. You don't have to hold the pose the entire time. But if you feel comfortable and you'd like to hold it the entire time, maybe even a little longer, that is up to you. My advice to you is let experience be your guide. Let your body tell you what you need to do. But during the hour, if you need help, always feel free to type in your questions via our Facebook Live thread. My better half is always on standby, ready to read those questions out to you. I don't think we've had anybody type any questions in, but just in case you do, if you're just not really quite sure what you're supposed to be feeling, or you just have a general question, again, let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer them and more than happy to help you out. What you doing up there? If you're ready, here's the time. Go ahead and either slide your feet down the wall or just bring your knees up to your chest. I want you to cradle your legs, rock up and down on your spine. Sorry, 1 second, I'm gonna grab this kitty. What are you doing, buddy? What do you think you're doing up there? Go on. All right, so laying on your back, cradling the legs, rock up and down on your spine, side to side, make circles, scoot away from the wall if you need to. What you're doing right now, though, just rocking back and forth, side to side, it's not a pose or anything. It's just a chance to use some rhythm and repetition. Helps to wake up your hips and wake up your spine, your lumbar, spine's lower back. It's something we'll work. We're going to work our hips as well. I was actually thinking about doing more of a hip series with our practice today. I don't think we've done just a pure hip series since I've been teaching via Facebook Live and online. So I thought it would be an appropriate thing to do. I know we've done a spine series. I know we've done hips and spine. But it's always nice to kind of target a little bit more of one. But just so you know, if your body is telling you today you need to do more spine work, that's okay. I will always throw out options for you so you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. If you want to make it more about your back, you can. If you want to make it more about your hips, you can do that. You want to do both, that's fine too. Okay. Just let experience be your guide. But again, my general game plan for practice today will be a hip series. Thanks, bud. If we're going to start off with the hips, let's begin with a twist pose. Reclining twist. Thanks, Tom. When you're ready, go ahead. Let's say we'll twist to the left, just so we're all on the same page here. A lot of times it's easier for me to explain things if we go the same way. So you lay on your back, bring your knees up to the chest, take your legs over to the left, lay them on the floor. This is the pose. And if you're comfortable here, don't do that. Stay here. It's going to be the right side of your back, obliques, side body. Outside of your right leg sometimes gets it too. Sometimes your glutes, your butt muscles might feel it too. But essentially the right side of your body is going to be getting the stretch here. Rob, please don't do that. Thank you so much for jumping up and facing the camera. It's always a challenge teaching when you have 4 animals that really want to get involved in your practice. But before I get too deep into modifications here, if you find yourself struggling, like maybe you can't get your knees together or you can't get your legs all the way to the floor, here's where a block will come in. You can always put a block under your bottom leg, or you can put it in between your knees. If you have 2 blocks or if you have some pillows, you could always do both, right? That's up to you completely. Just letting your body tell you what you need to do. As long as you can relax, right? As long as you can feel a nice moderate stretch where it's not too much, it's not too little, it's just right. Try to find that. But if you're comfortable here, let's modify a little bit, throw in some bonuses. Arms out to the T. It's a wonderful chest and shoulder opener. If your legs are going left, it's going to be the inside of the right chest and shoulder getting the opener. But that's just one thing you can do. Some people like to have their arms above their head. Arms above the head can stretch more obliques and side body. Mine also stretch your triceps. That's, again, optional. If you want to stretch your neck, try looking away from your legs. So again, for example, my legs are going left. So if I wanted to stretch my neck, I would look to the right, going away from it. But I'm feeling actually like I'd rather stretch more of my chest and shoulder, and I'm looking in the direction of my legs. So I'm feeling a little bit more of the right chest and shoulder opening with this. It's, again, 100% up to you. If you want to just do one of them, that's fine. If you want to do a combination of all these things, that's okay too. But the last thing to adjust will be your legs. Keeping your knees stacked usually is enough here, but if you feel like you need more, you can always take your top leg over your bottom leg. That would be the right leg over left if you're twisting left. So when this top leg comes over, there's deeper rotation in your pelvis, right? That's going to increase that side body stretch for you, increase the twist. Might be okay. Also, might not be. You will find out pretty quickly whether or not it's okay. If you notice it turns into more of a localized strain, typically it's going to be around the back right hip, you are overstretching. Anything localized, anywhere like that in your body is overstretching, in which case keep your knees stacked, you're just better off there. Another instance that you're going too deep is if you can't relax. And by relax, I mean let your muscles soften. If you're noticing your core, your back muscles, your glutes, your legs, they all start flexing, they're engaging, that your body's saying, again, I'm going too far, so I should decrease the intensity. So if taking this top leg over is too much, don't worry about it, right? It is not the point. The point of this is to feel the side of your body stretching, the obliques, outside of your right leg, whatever side you're on, right? But if you're going left, it's that lower right side getting it. So wherever you need to be. And let's hang out here for another minute. Just relax. When you're ready, thank you, good down dog. There's a time, slowly unwind from your twist. You can lay on your back if you'd like to. You could always lay on your side with your legs, whatever you need to do. Good job. Just take a moment. You know, maybe pet your dog if they're right there next to you. Give them a little bit of love, even though she's been getting love like 24/7 since we've been home. But somehow it's just not enough. Take a few deep breaths, maybe like 2 or 3. When you're ready, you can go ahead and make your way for the other side. Whichever side you are on, but if you're on the same page as me, you're going to the right now. So that means laying on your back, knees up to the chest, take your legs over to the right, lay them on the floor. This is the pose. And the intention here is to feel the lower left side of your back, your obliques on the left side. Maybe the outside of your left leg, right? Sometimes your glutes, your butt muscles. Again, everybody's different, so if you don't feel it here, that's okay, as long as you're able to get the side body. Really, that's the main focus of this one. These other things are just bonuses. But 2 sides are different. And you probably get here and notice that. Maybe on this side you need to use the block. You got to put it in between your knees. You got to put it under your bottom leg. Maybe you got to do both. If you have a block, use it. If you have a pillow, use that too. It's okay. Whatever your body calls for, right? Do that. Using props is not cheating. Please remind yourself of that. Props are meant to assist you in these poses, right? To help you out, to relax you a little bit more and give you a better stretch. Now, if you're comfortable in your twist, things are relaxing, muscles are softening, you feel the broad side body stretch, play around with the bonuses that we suggested. Arms out to the T. Get your chest and shoulder opener. If your legs are going right, like mine are, it's inside of the left chest and shoulder getting the opener. That's, again, up to you as to what you're going to do. But if you want to do it, that's fine. But maybe you have arms above the head on the other side to get more oblique and side body. Got the triceps involved too. Again, whatever you do on the other side, do here. If you stretched your neck, look away from your legs. So if your legs are going right, turn your head to the left. I stretch more in my chest and shoulder on the other side though. So I'm actually going to look with my legs. So my legs are going right, I'm looking right, it's inside the left chest and shoulder, getting that opener. So again, whatever you did on the other side, do here. If that was a combination of all of these things, use your internal clock. Feel it out as to when you need to adjust. Last thing to adjust for your legs. Keeping the knees stacked is usually enough, but if you need more, you can always take your top leg over the bottom leg. Maybe this side needs it. Take that top leg over. If you can relax, you still feel that side body stretch, you're good to go. But if you're in this and you're saying, no, I'm not relaxing anymore, my core muscle, something is tightening, it's flexing, or I'm feeling that lower back hip pain, usually it's the back left hip right there, that side joint, just keep the knees stacked, right? I don't want you to overstretch. I'd rather you under stretch than over. And that's why I like to give you the scale of stretching early in the practice. Between 1 and 10, if 10 is your deepest stretch, go for 6 and 7. You are less likely to overstretch there, more likely to relax, find a nice moderate stretch where it's not too much, it's not too little, it's just right. Obviously that's very subjective, but you will feel it, right? You will feel that sweet spot. When you find it, stay there. And let's hang out here again for another minute. ahead and take a few deep breaths. And when you're ready this time, just really slowly unwind from the twist. You can lay on your back if you'd like to, or lay on your side. Lay flat, bring your knees up to the chest. Whatever you want to do for a minute. It's entirely up to you. But we will take a moment to relax, to feel the rebound effect. You're ready. Go ahead and make your way for a comfortable seated position. The next target area we're going to focus on is going to be our IT bands. Iliotibial band. This is the outside of your leg running from ilium to tibia. That's why they call it IT band. Iliotibial band, outside of the leg. But if you're doing this and you feel knee pain or you feel hip pain, listen to the modifications, right? I'll throw out a whole bunch of different ways to work around the localized pain, right? Because I don't want you to feel anything around the knee or around the hip. It's going to overstretch. It's going to hurt you, potentially hurt you. Broad stretch on the outside of the leg, though, is what you're targeting. If you have a wall, I was going to recommend what's called eye of the needle up the wall. Maybe we'll do it on the same page. If you don't have a wall, just completely disregard this. But if you do, maybe try this one out. It's one of my personal favorite poses. So you're laying on your back with this. You have one foot up the wall. Let's say you have the left foot up the wall, just for the sake of being on the same page. Left foot up the wall, right leg will cross over, and you'll rest your right foot on your left knee. So it's going to be the outside of the right leg getting the stretch. To increase this one, you have two ways. One is to take your foot that's against the wall and slide it down. So you would have to bring your left foot down to increase. If that doesn't help, you could just scoot in closer. A lot of times that's going to solve the problem for you right away. Just getting closer, you have more leverage. Right? Now, again, if you have a wall, feel free to try this one out. Outside of the right leg getting it, if you're on the same page as me. If you don't have a wall, swan pose, pigeon, it's also known as. It's the outside of your front leg, and I'll show you from a few different angles. So you can have your front leg shin parallel with the top of the mat. You don't have to do this, though. You could always bend your knee and bring your foot in towards your groin. Whatever's going to protect your hip and knee of the front leg, that's what you need to be doing. So you start leaning forward. Hands, elbows, head on the floor. Maybe head on the block if you got a block there with you, or pillows. It's up to you. Back leg can be adjusted too. Back leg could be perfectly straight behind you. Back leg could also come around you to the side. When the back leg comes around to the side, there's more external rotation involved with your pelvis, meaning it will turn out more. A lot of times this can increase the stretch and make it more comfortable for you. But for some people, it does the exact opposite. It makes it uncomfortable, and you lose the stretch. Let me show you why. So, again, for some people, when they do this pose and their back leg is straight behind them, that front hip is going to be basically just on the floor. For others, it's not. Right? For some people, I mean, we're talking like it could be like a foot up off the floor. But watch what happens when I bring this back leg around. See how my front hip now turns out and it's laying on the floor? That can make it more comfortable for a lot of people because that external rotation lays that hip on the floor. So same deal, lean forward to it. I think it's easier for me to go from this particular angle here, though. But again, up to you. You might have to play around with a few of these poses before you can even settle on what's going to work. You know, don't worry about what it looks like in your practice. Everybody will look different, even if you have a partner with you. If they're doing it with you, take a look at them because they're probably not looking the same as you. Even if you're related, you know, if you have like a brother or a sister or something like that with you, or maybe they're your parents or your children, look at them. They're probably a little bit different. Now you might see some similarities, you know, just based off the genetics of it, but everybody's skeleton is different. Every single person on this planet has a different range of motion with every single joint. And that's so worth understanding. A lot of people will base their practice off of what their instructor looks like or what the person next to them looks like. And I understand why people do that. You know, if you're a new student and you come into a yoga practice, you think to yourself, I should probably look like that. I should probably do the pose like that because obviously they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a while. But any instructor that understands anatomy is going to tell you don't worry about what they look like. They're going to say, what does it feel like for you? Do you feel the intention of the pose we're doing? And what I want you to feel is the outside of your leg. Now, if you're doing a swan pose, again, it's outside of the front leg. If you're doing this up the wall, it's the cross leg getting in. That's all that matters. Again, just breathe and relax for the next minute. Your butt. If you are ready, there's your time. Real slow, path of least resistance out. If you got your feet up the wall, uncross, keep your feet up the wall. If you're on the floor, you just kind of roll out, lay down on your back or your side or your stomach, wherever you need to be. Just take a moment for yourself. Right here. Lay down. No, don't stretch out. Lay. Windy. Sit. Hey. Down. Down. Thank you. Stay. She's a good dog. You really want to join us today, don't you? You want to steal the show? Do you want to teach? You want to teach this class? You probably could. When you're ready. And again, no rush, no hurry, but go ahead and make your way for the other side. Whichever side you are on, please make sure it's the other one now. All right, go on. Go on. Don't roll. Go. Thank you. No, not that way. Keep going. Thank you. So if you're doing this one up the wall, I think if you're on the same page as me, it's now your right foot up the wall with the left leg crossing over, right? Outside of your left leg should be getting this particular stretch. Increase it by taking your foot against the wall and sliding it down. So that would be the right foot. If that does not help, scoot in closer. And a lot of times you just need to get close to the wall. Up to you. If you're doing a swan pose, pigeon pose on this side, if you don't have a wall, remember it's the outside of your front leg getting this one. Be right here, broad stretch. Any knee pain or any hip pain, that goes for all of these poses. Anything localized, please let me know, or just modify and listen to these explanations that I'm going to give you. So if you're doing this one, swan pose, you could have your front leg shin parallel top of the mat. You can always bend your knee though, it's okay to do that. But regardless, lean forward. Hands, elbows, head on the block, head on the floor if you can get there. Back leg can either be perfectly straight behind you. You can always bring the back leg around you to the side. Once again, when this back leg starts coming around like this, it turns your front hip out with more external rotation so your leg can lay on the floor. It might just be better for you. It might just feel like it's a deeper stretch, and you might also be able to relax there a little bit more. Maybe not, though. Maybe today is just one of those days where you're saying, no, my body, it just needs to do it with the back leg straight. Right? That's okay. Don't worry about what you look like ever here, right? Just coming back to, and always coming back to, am I feeling this? And what's the intention of it? You'll get so much more out of your practice if that's your mindset. And breathe here, outside of the leg. Again, IT bands can be a tough area to work into. From my experience of being an instructor for nearly 10 years, this is one of the toughest areas for people to find a comfortable stretch in. And it's because of all the variation that comes with our hips. I mean, I could really go into the detail about it, but just think of things like your femur, your big leg bone. One big thing that we all have to consider is what's called torsion of our bones. If you didn't know this, your bones, they grow in spirals. Sometimes they grow in, sometimes they grow out. Everybody's bones are different, though, right? And that torsion can play a huge role. But not only that, your femur has a neck to it. What's the angle? Is it like 45 degrees? Is it more up toward 90? Is it more like 0 degree? Who knows what exactly that's going to be? And then other things to consider too, the location of your hip socket It's your acetabulum, if you're curious about the anatomical term for it. Is it more towards the outside? Is it more towards the front? Is it somewhere in the middle of that? Shape of your pelvis. Does it fan out more, or does it fan in more? Again, knowing those small details can make a world of difference in your practice. Just knowing that maybe I have to adjust this a different way. Maybe I have to lean a certain way to make this really work for me. Again, I don't expect you to just learn this after one or even a couple of weeks worth of practices. I mean, again, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and I'm still learning new things all the time. Every single time I do a practice, I'm learning more about myself. You probably will too. But that foundation of understanding my body is different, and I need to learn the way it needs to move, you'll go from there, and you will grow a lot from that. And once again, another minute, relaxing. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths, and if you're ready, there is your time. Really slowly making your way on out. You can lay down if you'd like to on your back, side, stomach, get your feet up the wall. Keep them there. You do whatever you need. Take a moment, though. Sometimes it feels nice just to listen to your intuition. My body's saying hug your knees right now, so hug my knees. But maybe your body's saying, no, I need to rest my feet up the wall. Stay there. Actually, I wanted to talk a little bit more about why feet up the wall is beneficial for you. When the feet are elevated up your wall, it's an inversion to your body. So the blood that normally collects in your legs with gravity is running down the legs up into your torso, and it can be a really rejuvenating feeling, getting some new blood up into your organs. And you can do that as long as you want to. Normally in a yin practice, I'll start off a practice with 5 minutes of that. I'll always find myself doing it throughout the practice sporadically too. But you could do this just whenever you want. You don't have to do this during a practice. You could just be watching television and say, I should rest my feet up the wall a little bit. The direct result of that is the heart will slow down and your blood pressure will lower a little bit. If you have really high blood pressure, it's one of those things where it's a judgment call, especially if you're on medication. It might not actually be beneficial for you to do that, but in some cases it is. Obviously your doctor is going to let you know if it is or not, so please listen to their advice. Don't just say, my online yoga teacher said I could rest my feet up the wall and cure my high blood pressure. I didn't say that at all. I'm saying that it could help treat some cases, especially moderate cases of high blood pressure. We're going to stretch our inner thighs next. I wanted to suggest a hip opener for you. Reclining butterfly is going to be the first one. But I'm also going to throw out some forward bends in case you want to do some back work, so it's going to be completely up to you. But if you wanted to do more hip work, reclining butterfly, you got the soles of the feet together, and you're laying on your back and letting gravity do all the work for you, right? You see why this is more for the hips, to keep your pelvis and your sacrum level with the floor. That is up to you. Now, if you want to do hips, that's going to be the choice I definitely recommend. But if you want to work your back, I would suggest either doing a forward bending butterfly, soles of the feet together, just laying and leaning forward into it. Inner thighs get the stretch, back gets the stretch too. If this does not feel comfortable for you, like it's more your knees that you're feeling or more your hips, more the back of the hips, anything localized, probably want to try out dragonfly pose, where you spread out your legs as far as you can. You lean forward. Wow, yeah. Inner thighs and back will get stretched. You'll get your hamstrings too. Sometimes you can just fall immediately into a pose and say, yep, this is really tight. so I should probably do this particular pose. At the moment I got into this dragonfly pose, I said, yeah, I can feel that tension right there in my inner thighs. I've been doing a lot of leg work lately. I've been teaching a lot more than I normally do. I mean, I usually would teach 5 classes a week, 6 classes a week, but not often as dynamic as I have been lately. My Tuesday classes, they're always going to be the strengthening practice, but doing more kids yoga, to be honest with you, I've never really taught kids yoga until last week. So I'm sort of just doing this all on the fly when it comes to that. But other practices, I've been teaching strengthening for years. I've been teaching the stretching for years. I've been teaching chair yoga for years as well. So I have the experience there, but a lot of times I just take what I know and improv off that. Most of my classes that I teach, I improv. I mean, I know what I'm doing when it comes to the teaching method, but sometimes I just kind of see what happens. I have a method to my madness, but a lot of times the plans that I have are useless. My teacher's teacher, Paul Grilly, and by the way, I would highly suggest checking out all of his material. Paul Grilly, again, is his name. He used to say, plans are essential, but plans are also useless. So sometimes you got to be willing to throw those plans out the window. I mean, we all are probably going through a situation like that right now, where you had a lot of plans that you really wanted to see through, and all of a sudden now you can't, right? You got to throw that out the window and go with what's happening in the moment. Yoga is a great way for us to start mentally preparing ourselves for things like that. Physically as well, but definitely mentally. And that's why I'm thinking about teaching more meditation classes here as well too. Probably next Monday. We had, at the library, before everything got shut down, we had plans for teaching another meditation course, and it was going to be on next Monday. So I'm thinking about next Monday night doing a meditation class, but I'll keep you all posted on that. Good job. Once you see how cute this little boy is. Except for sometimes you're pretty bad. Scoot your butt on camera like you're funny. Don't be shy, guy. If you're ready, we'll say it's time for this pose. Just real slow. Use your hands. Push yourself out of the forward bend. Lay down. If you're already laying down, already where I want you, bring the knees together, extend the legs out, maybe one at a time. But take your time coming out of the pose. You might have to bring your kitty with you because I don't want to disturb him. Look at this boy. If you're looking for any bicep curls, it's always a great one, right? He's pretty tolerant of that. I'm sure most cats would not really appreciate being curled like this, but he is a special young man, aren't you? Thank you. We're going to stretch our hamstrings next. And the hamstrings are the back of the legs, right? And a few things also, the back will be involved here too. Just listen to your body. It's going to tell you how exactly you need to approach it. But I was going to suggest caterpillar pose today, so both legs can get stretched at the same time, save a little time for us. So both legs are extended out in front of you. You're going to fall in round in the pose as best you can. Grab something comfortable. That might just be your knees, might be your shins, might be your ankles, might be the feet, might be the toes. And everybody's going to experience that differently, so don't worry about touching the toes. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's not the point, right? It's not a toe-touching competition. The intention is to feel the back of your leg. However, if you can, touch your toes. If you want to, pull back very slightly on it. You can get this bonus calf and Achilles tendon stretch. A lot of people are tight in their calves and Achilles tendon. So if you're in the area, feel free. But if you're not, don't worry about it. But here's also where you could use a prop. A towel is always a nice one. Or if you have a strap, like a yoga strap or a Pilates ring, those will work too. You can loop it over your feet. Use this for leverage to pull you forward. Try not to pull back so much because you'll lose the forward bend. But if you are doing this forward bend, and it's not a broad back stretch, it's more localized. Again, typically, it's back of the hips, the SI joints. You may actually want to consider laying on your back. You're going to want to use a prop here too if you have it. You can throw a strap over your feet and pull back. So you can get a pure hamstring stretch without having to bend forward, right? So that's going to be up to you. Now, if you can't, or if you don't have a towel or anything like that, you could always just grab it with your hands. Maybe you have to do just one at a time, but that's okay too, right? If you need to make this knee bend to grab the foot, go for it. A lot of people can't straighten this leg fully and also grab their legs. And it's not just because of flexibility. It could just be because of proportion. Like maybe you have really long legs and really short arms, right? That could cause a lot of issues. So bend the knee if you need to. And that also applies for those who are in this forward bend, in the seated caterpillar. If you need to let your knees bend, go for it. There's no rule that says you have to lock your legs down. It's a common alignment rule that I hear all the time. It's like, never let your knees bend. But why not? If you let your knees bend, you can round more into the pose. You can stretch your back more. You probably feel just as much of your hamstrings if you're tight there. Could use a block, though, if you'd like to as well. Put it under those knees here. Every now and then, I'll recommend using a towel. This one isn't really that thick, but maybe if I roll it up, it can help a little bit. Very slight bit of comfort here to get the knees to bend. It's very minimal, like maybe an inch of bending there. What I like to do with the towel, though, if you have one, or if you don't, you could always use the back of your mat. Roll it up and sit on it. And this bit right here, you see how my pelvis is elevated a little bit. Again, maybe like just half an inch to an inch. But this bit right here allows my pelvis to tilt more forward. So it creates more hamstring stretch here. That might be necessary for you. I mean, every now and then I'll have the student, when they do this pose, they can't bend forward. So what I'll do, I'll make them take a prop like a towel or the back of the mat. Sometimes, very rarely, I'll make them sit on a block so they can get their pelvis tilting forward, right? So we can get this hamstring stretch. I don't often recommend using a block to sit on. In some cases, I will. It's again one of those things I never really know until I get close to a student, and then I say, okay, yeah, you probably need to use this prop. We're all different, right? But what's important is, are you feeling tension right now? Do you feel that broad stretch in the back of your legs and in your back? Can you wave your hand and say, yeah, this whole thing, right? And that's all we care about. That is what we can change. The more we do this, the more flexible we become, the more we work through that tension. Could take time, though. Could take months, could take years. But at some point, you get there. It's just, you got to be patient with it. And simultaneously, you have to be persistent with the practice, right? You can't just do this once every other week and expect the therapeutic results. You got to be consistent. A few times a week is really what you need if you want to see some real results there. But you'll see it. Those small milestones will come into play. When I first started, I could not touch my toes. I mean, back when I first started doing yoga, I was struggling to grab my ankles. Right? But little by little, I could reach forward. I can bend more into it. If I wanted to, I can get my head and my knees, but I don't need to right now because I'm feeling plenty of the stretch. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths. We'll say if you're ready, there's time. Real slow. Use your hands. Push yourself up. Lean back. Lay down. Take your time getting there. If you're already laying down, you can already where I want you. So let the legs go and lay down. Take a moment. Once again, feel the rebound effect. And by rebound effect, I just want you to experience all the sensations that you're going through after a pose, right? You can feel every area that you just stretch and how different it is. When you're ready, go ahead and make your way for a comfortable seated position. And we have 2 more things left. We have to stretch our quads, and we have to do a back bend. But we're going to do the quads one side at a time. And I'm going to throw out some more hip openers for you. And I'll throw some that are more for your spine. So this can be up to you. But let's start off with the hip openers. Again, we're doing a hip series, so you might want to try it out. It's called the dragon pose. And basically it's a lunge. You have one leg in front, you have one leg behind. It is your back leg squat right here through the front of the back leg. It's going to get stretched. Hands on the mat if you'd like to. Although some people will say they actually lose the stretch here and they want to prop more upright like they basically are doing a lunge. Up to you, right? Just listen to what everybody's telling you. Something else that you can always do. Maybe I'll flip over so you can see it. Turning into your front leg can always open up your hip flexors a little bit. So if your right leg is in front, if you turn right, that's going to open up the hip flexor. Again, it's more towards the top of the pelvis, not necessarily the quad, a little bit higher up. A lot of people are tight there, might be worth stretching. I'll explain more about that in a second. So this is one option for you, but if you've done other classes with me, maybe by now you have a better pose in the back of your mind, like maybe you want to do a half bow pose. Half bow, you lay on your stomach and grab your foot, and you pull it. The more you pull, the more you get. Muscular effort is required. Have to grab something. If you can't grab anything, you're going to want to use a strap or a towel. Loop that towel over the foot and pull on it, right? You can't just not grab anything, because what you're doing here is not stretching your quads. You are flexing your hamstrings to make this happen. It will cause some serious issues with your knees, potentially with your hips. So please grab something so we can let the hamstring relax. Right? We want to stretch the quad. But one more, half saddle is always fine. Really quickly, I'll show you. Your knee is bent. It's the top of the bent leg that gets a stretch. The more you lean back. So starting with your hands is usually enough. But if you need more, keep going. Elbows are next. Laying on the back will be your full range. Again, up to you as to how far you go. But with all of these, please make sure your knee is fine. The inside or outside of the knee pain is overstretching. So please don't do that. And if that's usually the case, I would suggest either doing a half bow or dragon pose. One of the reasons why I suggest dragon pose is actually one of the more knee-friendly quad stretches, because you don't have to bend this knee, the back leg's knee, to get the quad stretch. You can get plenty of it with the back leg straight behind you. Now, optionally, you could bend the knee if you'd like to. Grab this foot. This is 100% optional, though. It's not a requirement. Some people will never be able to grab this foot, and that's okay. Right? I've been doing this for years. That's why I make it look like it's pretty easy, but it's really not. For a long time, it took some time to get there. But again, with patience and persistence, I've made it to where I needed to be. I did want to talk about why I suggested the dragon pose for the hip flexor stretch. Again, hip flexors are a group of muscles towards the top of your pelvis. Iliopsoas is what you'll hear called, but technically it's 2 separate muscles, the iliacus and the psoas major. And both of those control a lot of hip movement. When those muscles become too tight, they can pull your pelvis forward. What's called an anterior tilt. And some people will just have naturally anterior tilt built pelvises, but some people don't. And when you don't have it, and your hip flexors start pulling it forward, you're going to start feeling some serious pain. A lot of times it starts with the front of the hip, and then it starts radiating to the back of your hips. Most often, it will take place in L5-S1. If you've ever had back pain, you've probably had it in that particular joint, especially if the hips have gone out on you, because that's where the hips and spine meet each other, L5-S1. So again, stretching all these areas can help prevent a lot of those issues, because most people are going to have hip or spine issues at some point. Just from the spine, one of the last statistics I had heard of was they say 4 out of 5 Americans are going to deal with debilitating back pain at some point in their life, which is 80% of us, right? It's a lot. And considering now that we're trapped and cooped up in our houses for a while, we're going to be sitting a lot more. I'm assuming that in the next few months, we're going to start seeing a lot more people with more back pain than normal. So it's a good thing that we have an opportunity to exercise. So take advantage of it while you can. If you are ready, say it's time. Real slow, path of least resistance, out of your pose, whatever you happen to be in. If you're in a dragon, working into a child's pose, it's usually the easiest way. If you're in half bow, let it go. Half saddle, roll away from that leg that you're stretching. Same deal, lay down. Probably feels nice for everybody to lay or do a child's pose or cradle your legs. Other side. If you're ready, whatever side you're on, just make sure it's the other one. Dragon pose was the first one that I had shown, but I also showed half bow and half saddle, so I'll show those two. Remember, a dragon pose, you're basically doing a lunge, and it's your back legs quad getting you right here through the front of the back leg. The first modification that I had suggested was turning into your front legs. Let me show you again from the other side here. So if your left leg is in front, you would turn left. Right? And that pelvic rotation will increase your hip flexor stretch. If you did it on the other side, you're going to want to try doing it on this side. It doesn't have to be perfect with alignment, just making sure you're feeling it. But then we also suggested half bow, where you're laying on your stomach, grabbing your foot and pulling it. The more you pull, the more you get. If you can't grab the foot, use a towel or a ring or strap. Loop it over that ankle and grab it. Maybe just even your pant leg. Right? We want to get the knee to bend without flexing our hamstrings to make that happen. Half saddle is your last option. Got the knee bent, top of the bent leg getting the stretch, the more you lean back. So start with hands. Usually it's enough. But if you need more elbows, lay on your back is fine too. Please listen to your knee, right? Any knee pain, inside, outside, you are overstretching, do not do it. And it's not just in this practice. That could take place in any exercise. So please be mindful of that. So whatever pose you're choosing. I wanted to do more hips, so I'm doing a dragon pose. Because I want to specifically get my hip flexors stretched. Like I mentioned, hip flexors are control of your hip movement. A lot of it, at least. Does a lot of the forward tilts to it. So again, things like this can help prevent a lot of those issues. And it's not just with muscles. It's also with connective tissues, the stuff that really holds you together. Most people aren't familiar with how to work your connective tissue. And a lot of people, when they hear it, they're like, no, don't do that. That's going to hurt you. It could hurt your connective tissues if you stretched it and moved it with too much rhythm and repetition. Because it's a plastic tissue, if you're going to take something plastic and just kind of bend it back and forth, after a while, yeah, it's going to snap. But if you hold it in a slow, static way for a long period of time, it's going to change. It's going to start forming around you in the shape that you put yourself in. It's going to increase. Right? Increase on growth, increase in density as well. Help hydrate those tissues, because as we age, it dries up. Connective tissues just do that. So we exercise, we hydrate it again, and get it moving. Because what happens is, again, when it dries up, the layers of connective tissue get stuck together. And when they get stuck together, it feels really hard to move. It's really stiff. So again, we hydrate it, break those layers up that are stuck together so they can glide on each other, and we get smooth movement again. So again, one of the many reasons why we do this, but again, we can't neglect connective tissue. We really really have to work it. It's going to help increase density of not only the connective tissues themselves, but your bones too. If you're ready, there's your time. Real slow, let yourself on out. Path of least resistance, whatever pose you're in. Dragons often will work back into a child's pose. Half bows will let them go. Half saddles usually just roll away from it. Take time on out. We have one more pose left. We have to do a back bend. Compress the spine a little bit. So with our back bend today, the first option I'm going to give you is Sphinx pose, and the other will be supported bridge. I'll show both though. A Sphinx pose, you lay on your stomach, prop up onto your forearms and your elbows. This is the pose. Now stretch. It's dull, gentle pressure right here in the back of the spine. You should be feeling compression, right? Bone on bone, but it's nothing sharp. If it's dull and gentle, you're good to go. If it's sharp, lower down. You may also want to try out a different pose. If you have a block, you could always do supported bridge. You put a block under your back, and you lay on it. Here's your pose. So knees bent, feet on the floor are totally fine, but increase this by sliding your legs out. There's deeper arc in the back here when the legs can slide out. You could also make it deeper by how you position the block. Usually I start it low and flat because I don't have a deep back bend, but some people will flip it up. I've seen some people do it vertically. I've seen some people use 2 blocks. I am not the kind of person who would use 2 blocks because I don't have a deep back bend. Some people do. Others like me, we don't. And it's not a matter of me being inflexible and not trying hard enough. It's not because I'm not converting to be a vegan or I'm not meditating hard enough. It's because my skeleton does not allow it. My spine did not develop that deep curve. Everybody develops that differently. I'll talk more about that in a second. But before we, again, get too deep into that, let's modify it. If you need to increase it, if you need to, first way, start off in a Sphinx pose, lifting your feet up. Might be all right. Might be too much, though. If it is, lower down. If it's not, seal pose is always fine. Called upward dog or cobra, depending on the style of yoga you're doing at the time. Just make sure your hips stay on the floor. I'm doing this in a modified way. If my hands come in any closer, my hips will come up off the floor and I will start overdoing the back bend. So let me just quickly show you that. And here's me, modified seal. Watch my hips, also watch my back. You see how my back isn't changing at all? But it's just my hips that are coming up? It's because I'm over bending, right? I've already hit my full range. My full range is here, right? But here and here with the elbows down, it's a minimal difference. Some days I feel like it's necessary to push up and seal. Other days, it's not. Again, it just depends on how you developed your spine as to how deep your back bend is going to be. Everybody develop that differently. And you develop within the first few years of your life. They call it a secondary curve because it was something you developed. So if you're around an infant, again, put them all on their stomachs and they all do the same thing. They start lifting their big baby head up, develops the neck and the cervical spine. Before long, they start pushing up into seal poses. And this is where they develop their lumbar spine, their lower back, right? That's where you got it from. And I joke around, but it might be true. Maybe I didn't do enough seal poses as a baby. Who knows, right? Who knows? But that right there is the reason why everybody's spine is different. Some people have almost no back bend. Some people have contortionist-like back bends. Talking about you. My significant other, Sarah, who's always, again, behind here on the camera, does a wonderful job, has a very deep back bend. She puts me to shame, right, in doing some of these poses. And I've been doing yoga for like twice as long as she has. But again, it's not because she's more flexible, it's because her spine allows it. Right? Her back will allow it. Maybe one day I'll bring her in here so that she can demonstrate for you. But if you're ready, there's the time. If you're ready, if you're in a Sphinx pose, lay on your stomach, same deal with seal poses. If you're in supported bridge, lift your hips up, slide the block out, and lay down. Take a moment, though, for yourself. After a back bend, it's going to feel nice to do a gentle forward bend. You know, child's pose is usually a nice one to head to. But you could always lay on your back and cradle the legs. You can do a squat pose. Maybe I'll show all these. Downward dog is fine too. If you've been doing the other classes, you know what that is by now probably. Before we wrap this practice up, like I mentioned, tomorrow is going to be a special class, chair yoga. It's one of my specialties I've been doing for a long time, teaching mobility and some strengthening things to senior citizens. So if you know somebody, a senior who is in their home, or they just need something to do, some kind of exercise, tell them to tune in tomorrow at 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. to 12. We'll be doing a nice blend of some strengthening things. We'll be doing some stretching things. So we'll be doing a lot. Most of it, I would say like 80% of it will be done in the chair. There might be 20% where I might have everybody stand up for it, but always using your better judgment. If you're someone who really struggles with standing, maybe you just do all of it sitting in the chair. I'll make it work both ways, but I do like to throw in a bit of challenge to it, because if we don't challenge ourselves, we don't grow. Right? So a little bit of stress can go a long way. When you are ready, we are at the end of our practice. If you're ready for Shavasana, corpse pose, go ahead and lay on your back if you'd like to. Maybe even lay on your side, lay on your stomach. You can rest your feet up the wall, sit upright in meditation. Wherever you're most comfortable, go there and close your eyes. Nothing to see at this point, just more to feel and pay attention to. And I want you to pay attention to your breath and breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. Turn your senses, your awareness within. And for these last few minutes, observe the work that you have done with your practice. Give your body a compare and contrast. How different do you feel right now as opposed to when you first started? No formal ending to our practice. Keep your eyes closed and stay in your Shavasana as long as you'd like. But that's officially all that I have for you. I want to thank you all for watching, sharing your practice with me. It's been my pleasure. Namaste.